Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back. It is time for Unit 3 to begin, and for us to take a look at what's happening in Unit 3. This week, we are focused on the rubric for writing assignments as the writing assignment. And I talked a little bit about that in last week's um, walkthrough because rubrics are very important for um, understanding how and why you get the grades that you get on the writing assignments in all of your classes. Rubrics are a standard thing in higher ed that your instructors will use to score you. And so having an understanding of those is really important. So that's the big assignment this week. Let's take a look at what else is going on in the course. And we're going to also eventually take a look at the sample document. Um, but we're going to put that behind the course because we're going to look at that a little bit later. All right, so Unit Three's theme is ideas. And in this particular week, we are focused on how to navigate the writing assignments, determining how to understand the writing assignment itself, as well as the rubric that will be used to grade it. We're going to be looking at active reading skills. One of the biggest things that you can do to make yourself a better student is to embrace reading and not just reading it passively, but being an active reader, taking notes while you read, possibly annotating things. There's all kinds of cool tools that you can use for that now because most of our reading is done fully online. But there's also nothing that beats a good old notebook. So, anyway, so that's the focus for this week. You have, of course, as always, your set of readings and resources. The chapter from Johnson this week is chapter 1, and that is focusing on the writing process itself. This is something that we will talk about a lot because writing is always a process. Even if you feel like, okay, well, I waited until the last minute, I have to sit down, I have to write this assignment, I'm done with it in 15 minutes, and it didn't feel much like a process. We still have to process things in order to write successfully. So, in the academic writing process, we identify four main stages. One is pre-writing, which is the planning stage. I personally like the word planning better than I like the word pre-writing because there's nothing that says pre-writing doesn't get written down. So I like planning a little bit better. But of course, when we're planning, we're focusing on what we want to do, what we need to do. This is where you go through the assignment and you get all of the requirements and all that good stuff. Then we have the drafting or writing stage, which is where we take the ideas and things that we have gathered in pre-writing and we turn those into the paragraph or the essay or whatever it is that we're needing to complete. The stage after that is revision, because nobody writes perfectly the first time out. It is just literally impossible to not have to revise your work. And then finally, we call the final stage publishing. In the case of school, it's turning it in. But in the real world, publishing is a real thing. It's either published, could be published on the internet, it could be published in a book, it could be published in a newspaper. There are a lot of things that get written that then turn around and get published. And so those are the four. Next, you're going to be looking at active reading strategies. And this is from a textbook by Gamble from 2016. There are 3 chapters that you'll read on active reading, determining a purpose, and determining what's important. These are very important chapters. So please do take your time with those. It is more reading sometimes than we have, but it is really going to be a skill that you need to hone while you're in college. So take a look at those chapters as well. Then you have a couple of articles to read on what we call soft skills or transferable skills. Um, and you're going to utilize this as we proceed through the class. So there's one called It's Never Too Late to Learn Skills to Help You Succeed, and then the second one is called Learn New Skills to Beat Redundancy. one of the things that we don't always think about is that in the work world, we're always having to learn new things because even if we're not in school, we have to learn new skills all the time and we have to learn how to navigate new items. So anyway, so those are a couple of things that you will read as well. Under supplemental resources, we have another link to the APA title page template. You are going to use that again this week. You will always, when we have a formal writing assignment, you'll have the title page, and this week you'll have um the paragraph will be on page 2. This week does not involve any research, so you will not necessarily have a references page this week, but you will have the title page and the paragraph on page 2 for sure. We also have some videos on breaking down writing prompts. So again, mostly active reading, writing with audience in mind, and writing with purpose, audience, and tone in mind. These are going to be really important as you complete your discussion board this week. So make sure that you take a look at both of those as well. All right. Next, of course, there's the interactive. This week's interactive will focus on audience tone and purpose. So that too will help you with your, it's not a discussion, I take it back, it's a journal entry on audience tone and purpose. I always get these two confused. This is one of the strangest weeks in an online class because there is no discussion board. That's very unusual. You have a journal entry and a formal writing assignment. So the journals, as you may remember from back in Unit 1, operate kind of the same way a discussion board does in terms of you can write it directly in the little box and hit submit. Um, the main difference is that the journal is personal. The journal only goes to me. It does not, it's not visible to the rest of the class. So whereas a discussion board, of course, is not only visible to the rest of the class, but it's one of those things where you do also then respond to each other. For the journal, it's just you and me, essentially. We talked about it in Unit 1, but let me reiterate that journaling, there is no right or wrong answer. This is you sharing your personal thoughts and experiences. And it's important to include real experiences because this is how we develop our paragraph. So each time you do a journal entry, it'll be at least 6 sentences, a good solid paragraph. And there are always going to be prompts that will help you navigate what you need to write about. So this week, we're focused on these 3 questions. 1, do you ever think about audience purpose and tone when at your job or at home? Now, that sounds like a yes or no question. Please do not treat it as a yes or no question. And the answer should be if you haven't ever thought about it before, you probably should start thinking about it. Um, we tend to not think about audience purpose and tone as much when we're in our private lives, but it is important. And you probably already do and you just don't think about it. One of the best examples that I like to think about this is when I am writing an email to one of my colleagues at work that I'm close to. That email is much less formal than an email that I'm sending, say, to my supervisor, or say that I'm sending to a colleague that I don't know as well. Um, we have a tendency to be less formal in our tone when we are communicating with people that we know well. Now, in some cases, that could be the opposite. Sometimes, if you have a parent or a grandparent, say, who you know you have to mind your P's and Q's with, that you might adopt an even more formal tone when you speak to them, as opposed to your friends. So it's an interesting thought process to think about audience purpose and tone, specifically when it comes to private life, because it doesn't have to be written. It could be verbal as well. You think about tone of voice, for example. I know when I was a teenager, I think when everyone's a teenager, we often get in trouble for taking that tone with our parents, um, because we do. So we all have experiences that relate to this. So think of those and include that in your response. The second question is after you've read about audience purpose and tone, watched the videos about audience purpose and tone. Is there anything else that you're confused about? Do you have any questions about audience purpose and tone? And then, of course, finally, why is it important? Audience purpose and tone. Specifically, of course, with that, you would focus on writing because that's what we're dealing with mostly in this class. But really, it's uh, any kind of communication that occurs, you can look at audience purpose and tone with. So have some fun with it. Give some straight, some specific examples from your life that you can share, and at least 6 sentences in a well-developed paragraph. Okay. That's the journal. Just as a reminder for the journal, like I said, it operates very much like the discussion board. So all you have to do when you come in here is create the journal entry. You'll give it a title and you can type it directly in this box. You can make this fancy if you want. If you want to change the font, if you want to make it bigger, you can do all kinds of things with it. You can even insert a picture if you want to kind of illustrate what you're talking about. You can pretty much do anything with it. Once you are ready to turn it in, you will post the entry. If you think you want to come back to it later, you can save it as a draft. Just don't forget to come back and do it to post the entry. Okay. So that's what it looks like when you are submitting the journal. All right. Last assignment, big writing assignment, is the deconstructing a rubric assignment. So we have two links here. We have the template, which we're going to, again, take a look at the sample in a minute. Excuse me. And then we have the actual assignment sheet with the rubric in question. So let's go over the assignment. Make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. In this writing activity, you will create a short paragraph, 6 or more sentences, that focuses on specific questions related to using rubrics. Throughout this class and your time at Post, rubrics will be used to explain the important requirements of assignments. So by using active reading strategies before you start an assignment, by reviewing and breaking down or deconstructing rubrics, you will understand better what is exactly being asked of you when you complete an assignment. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to use the rubric for this very assignment. You don't have to look at a different rubric. You don't have to go to last week's. You were going to look at the one that's here. The rubrics are always at the end of these assignment sheets, and we always have the set of criteria, and then we have the point spread. As we talked about last week, obviously you want to earn as many points as you can. And so when you consider how to have the rubric help you plan your assignment, you want to aim, of course, for all directions followed. And then we have the other breakdowns. So take a look at this rubric, close look at this rubric for the assignment, and write a paragraph, at least 6 sentences, about what's important in that specific rubric. What are the criteria? What are the point spreads? What are the different categories that you can score in? You want to make sure that you address these questions in your paragraph. What stood out to you as you read through the rubric? What do you notice, just as someone who may or may not have ever really looked at a lot of rubrics before? So what stands out? What might be confusing about the rubric? And then this one is always tough for people. What would you grade yourself based on the rubric? So once you have written your paragraph, or you've written most of the paragraph, you're going to actually come to the rubric and score yourself. Is it 6 or more sentences? Did you answer fully question 1? Did you fully answer question 2, etc., etc.? Score yourself and give yourself a grade, not an A, B, or C, but an actual numerical grade on the assignment. You are using the APA template, so you will have a title page, and then the paragraph will be, like I said, on page 2. You do not have a references page for this week, and you don't even have, like last week, you had a link to include. You don't have to do any of that because this is not a research assignment. This is just using the rubric for this assignment. So let's take a look at that sample. Again, if you pull up the template, this is what it looks like. I am going to change the date to Sunday's date so that when I share this, it'll already be, set up. So let me double check that date. I always like to make sure. I think it's the 16th, but not the 16th. It's the 9th. Oh, see, I'm already ahead of myself. So we're going to change this to November 9th because that's the due date for this. All right. So on the title page, you will have the header with the page number. You will have your title. You can call this anything you want. Somebody asked last week what you should title your work. You can call it anything you want. I always encourage people to give your work a real title and not just Unit 2 assignment or Unit 3 assignment. Like I think it's good to have something specific, but you don't have to be super creative. Just using rubrics is fine, or understanding a rubric, or deconstructing a rubric, which is the name of the assignment. The next line down, of course, is your first and last name, English Department Post University, English 107, The Power of Words, my name, and then the due date. On page 2, your double spaced paragraph will be on page 2, and you will include the title again at the top of page 2, still in bold. It's bold both places. And then this is where your paragraph will go. So, as I usually do, I'm going to save this and I'm going to include this in the announcement so that you can just use this as the template, or you can use the template that's on the that's in the course. I also wanted to show you something really quick while we're here, because I had a couple of folks who were a little bit confused about where to locate your access to Word. So I'm gonna go to Post's website and I'm gonna log in. And over here under quick links, just like you get to Blackboard, directly below Blackboard is Office 365. When you open Office 365, you will have to sign in, but you have free access to Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Copilot, which is an AI system. Over here under apps, you will find all the things that you have access to. So there's Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You are using Word for most of our documents. We are going to do a PowerPoint coming up, but for right now, you can open Microsoft Word. And this is where you could open the template. They do tend to have good templates built in. So I'm actually just going to look and see if they have a APA paper that's current. Yes, they do, but this one is not current. So this is the right one for the current system, although I don't see the page number. Let's go ahead and open it. But if you've saved the template, yeah, the only thing that's missing is it is missing the page number, which is weird. So we would need to insert a page number in the header. And then, yep, so there it is. It also should be on page 1 though. Different first page, unclick that. There we go. So now the page numbers are up there. This is just a blank line, so you wouldn't actually have anything there, but other than that, this is right. This is much more elaborate than most of the documents that we're going to be creating, but it is a decent template. For our assignment for this one, you're only going to have one paragraph. So let's just delete everything after that. And this would be your new version of the template. This would be simple and easy. Now, here's where people seem to get confused. When you are ready to turn your work in, you need to save it. So we're going to save. Actually, I think it automatically saves these things, but let me put in something. Okay, so it's saved. You do not want to click share. And I know that that makes sense, but you do not want to click share. You are going to upload this document to the assignment. So I've got it saved as Unit 3. So I'm going to go back over to the course and I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click on Upload Files and I'm going to browse the cloud service. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this because I'm signed in as a sample student, but it should be saved in your OneDrive. This is going to give me a lot of things from my other OneDrive, I think, but let's take a look. All right, so I have a document saved. I have the Unit 2, Unit 3. Okay, here's the one I just did. So Unit 3 doc. I'm going to click on that box and I'm going to just select one and I'm going to import. Now, if you had saved that on your computer, which is what I normally do, and when I show you, that's what I'm usually showing you. If you save it on your computer and not to the cloud, you can go to Browse Local Files, and it's the one that's right here. So, same principle. You would never turn in two documents, by the way, but just going to leave them on here so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to click on Submit. And it may take a minute. I have two different files here. You typically would only have one, but this is how you turn in the work, okay? And this is what it will look like once you've turned it in. You will get the sample of what you are seeing. This is the one that we did last. Um, so this is the one that came directly from the cloud. And you'll notice it looks just like what we were just looking at. Okay. If you have problems with that, my number one suggestion, instead of sending me an email, is to look at resources like on YouTube. Because honestly, when somebody needs a demonstration of something, a video is almost always more helpful than a verbal written description. I do have a video on using this, so I will include that video in this week's announcement as well as this video and the sample document. So, but if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. But I just think that most of the time, if you have questions about how to do something technologically, you are almost better off to go to YouTube than you are to email because there's so many things out there. I use that all the time for how to do computer stuff because, uh, I don't always know the answer either. But anyway, take care, everybody. If you have any questions this week, do let me know, and I will look forward to reading your stuff.